Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So we're studying the talks of Swami Prabhavananda. For those of you who don't know, Swami Prabhavananda headed the Vedanta Society of Southern California from its inception in 1929 until July 4th, 1976, when he quite deliberately left the body as an homage both to Swami Vivekananda and to this country. On the bicentennial of the country, he left the body. This collection of his talks was edited by his beloved disciple Nalini, Edith Tipple, and they are a collection of his talks given from 1938 to 1976. We're studying the talk called Yoga, simply Yoga, and we're a good bit way through. And the Swami says, Patanjali, the great yogi, can also be said to be a great scientist or psychologist. Science is verifiable and demonstrable. In the same way, religion is verifiable and demonstrable to those who are ready to understand. And I might add that that's also true of science these days. There's no way you're going to understand modern physics unless you ready yourself to understand it. And the same thing could be said of economics, any of the sciences these days. So it's not just that you have to be ready to understand the science of religion, as the Swami is talking about. You have to be ready to understand any science. And as in science, you have to go to the laboratory to have a demonstration. As Swamiji said, in order to be a chemist, you must burn your hand in acid from time to time. Just saying, oh, chemistry, come to me, doesn't make you a chemist. And notably, Swamiji also said just reading the chemistry book will not make you a chemist. So it isn't just reading these books, reading these scriptures, or hearing these talks that will make you a spiritual aspirant. It is, as the Swami said, burning your hands in acid from time to time. That is to say, daring to dive within yourself. So, oh, chemistry, come to me doesn't make you a chemist. In spiritual life, the laboratory is our own mind. Patanjali gives us the methods by which to remove the impurities of the mind, and then the individual spirit opens to the light-giving knowledge of the Atman. He gives us 8 limbs of yoga through which, if we follow, the Atman becomes revealed. I'm going to repeat that because this is the key to what the Swami is talking about and what Patanjali is talking about. In spiritual life, the laboratory is our own mind. Patanjali gives us the methods by which to remove the impurities of the mind, and then the individual spirit opens to the light-giving knowledge of the Atman. Patanjali gives us 8 limbs of yoga through which, if we follow, the Atman becomes revealed. Notice the promise. It is just like going into the laboratory and putting a beaker over the Bunsen burner, putting in this solution and that solution and the reagent, and suddenly the beaker, which had been full of liquids, is suddenly full of crystals. Just like that. Well, as Sri Ramakrishna says, when we do our spiritual practices, at some point, just like a match lit in a room that has been dark for 1,000 years, suddenly there is no more darkness. So this is what he means when he says, the Swami says, Patanjali gives us 8 limbs of yoga through which, if we follow, the Atman becomes revealed. Yoga has been aptly compared to a tree bearing luscious fruit. The seed of the yoga tree is nourished by yama and niyama, which I shall explain. As it begins to germinate, it is further fed by asana and pranayama. And as it matures and becomes a full-grown tree, it bears flowers in the practice of pratyahara and abundant fruit in dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So now the Swami has listed all the 8 limbs of yoga. Now let us try to understand them one by one. Yama, or restraint, includes ahimsa, abstention from harming others in thought, word, or deed. Every other principle of yama is to be followed in thought, word, and deed. So let's just begin again, just to be absolutely clear. Yama, or restraint, includes ahimsa, abstention from harming others in thought, word, or deed. Every other principle of yama is to be followed in thought, word, and deed. Abstention from falsehood, abstention from stealing, observance of chastity, and abstention from greed. All of these in thought, word, and deed. It is interesting that there are so many limbs and ideals, so many limbs and ideals. But if you are perfect in one of these practices, your heart will be purified. Such is their power. Now, abstention from harming others appears to be a negative observance, but in its positive sense, the meaning is to do good to all and to learn to live in love and harmony with others. I'm going to repeat that. Now, abstention from harming others appears to be a negative observance, but in its positive sense, the meaning is to do good to all and to learn to live in love and harmony with others. Remember this. This is the first teaching of all great teachers. Do no harm. Buddha emphasized it especially. One may say, another hurts me, hates me, did this to me. I will not forgive and forget. Well, such a person can never be a yogi. Love conquers hatred. Swami Vivekananda gave a wonderful interpretation. The test of ahimsa is absence of jealousy. He points out that the so-called great men of the world may all seem to become jealous of each other, or for a little name and fame, or for a few bits of gold. Such jealousy exists in the heart and is far away from the perfection of ahimsa. So before we go ahead, let's see if there are any comments or questions about this question of ahimsa, this statement of ahimsa. Notice that the Swami gave its positive as well as its negative interpretation. He said, it's not just, as Vivekananda said, the absence of jealousy. It is to do good to others, to live in love and harmony with others. The way it's been said from here is, you do away with your adversarial relationship with the world. When you think of the world as something that you must take from, that you're putting I, me, and mine in front of, in the middle of, and at the end of every relationship, then it is not possible to practice ahimsa. Ahimsa is possible only by practicing a kind of selflessness, by doing away with your adversarial relationship with the world, by setting that aside. Now we'll get to how that's done later, unless it comes up as a result of one of your questions. So any questions or comments about this primary principle, this foundational principle of ahimsa, or not just being harmless, but being positively loving and selfless?
I have a comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please.
It's like Saint Francis of Assisi said, "Where there is hatred, let me sow love."
Yes, exactly.
And then
The whole prayer of Saint Francis is a prayer and poem about ahimsa.
yes, and that doesn't mean we have to kiss the person who kiss their feet who hurts us, but we just have to let them go out of our heart, the hatredness. We have to send the loving thoughts. I just don't want people to misunderstand what I said.
No, we do not have to.
Right.
We do not have to be a doormat for people.
Exactly.
But what is remarkable is if you practice love
Yes.
and selflessness, it transforms your relationships with other people.
Yes. The hatred only eats us up.
Well, yes, and the wonderful lesson about hatred is
Yes.
it doesn't hurt the other person at all. It only hurts you.
It only hurts the person who is hating. Yes, that's what I meant. Yes, thank you.
It only harms us when we have this adversarial relationship to the world. The world is going to be what it is, particularly given what our karma is. But when we do this purification, our karma changes, and
Yes.
other people change in their behavior toward us. This is what's meant by thought, word, and deed. When we practice this in thought, word, and deed, then what happens is the thoughts, the words, and the deeds that come back to us mirror what we are becoming and that purification rather than what was.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you, dear.
I just have one more comment. I will go afterwards. It's Swami said, "Oh, chemistry, come to me. It doesn't make you a chemist." Very true. And I remember one quote from Abdul Kalam. He was the 11th president of India. He said, "If you want to shine like sun, first burn like sun."
Yes.
Just a quote I remember. I thought that just seems to perfect.
And what does that mean? That means burn yourself up.
Exactly.
Which is what the sun is doing. It's very slow from our perspective, but that's what the sun is doing.
Yes, that was
The
a good.
sun is burning itself up
Thank you.
for the benefit of the solar system that it nourishes. Anything else about this concept of ahimsa? It's what it is and its application.
Hari Om Shankaraji.
Hari Om Balaji.
I really like this, even though he says this ahimsa is the one, and he gave all these things: falsehood, not stealing, chastity, and greed. And the word he said, even if you practice one to the utmost, you get this, that perfection.
Yes.
That is a wonderful statement, because the Swami is trying to tell us, if we perfect even in one, automatically the other things are also follow that.
Yes.
And the
reason is to practice even one.
Yeah.
We must do away with that adversarial relationship with the world. To stop offering falsehoods, we have to not feel like we're going to get something or escape from something by the falsehood. And stealing is a very subtle thing. Swami Yogeshananda used to be people called him stingy, abstemious, and so on. No. He simply was practicing that principle of not taking more, not using more than he needed. And to others, he seemed excessive about it. Well, we'll let them argue that out with the Swami. But that was what he was doing. People didn't understand.
Brother Shankara?
Yes.
When you say to practice even one, I'm not exactly sure what one is referring to. Is it the limbs of yoga or something?
No. Practice even one of these yamas.
Okay.
If you practice even one of these to perfection, you will attain the perfection of all of them. And I just explained why.
Okay.
To practice any one of these, you have to do away with what causes you to be greedy. A person who practices falsehood, who is constantly taking from others in a sexual sense, You have to do away with that foundational idea of it's me against the world. If you do that, if that fundamental idea changes, then it becomes possible to practice these. But that is the fundamental difficulty. And of course, it doesn't happen in a day or a week or a month or even 5 years. But you progress as you learned, particularly as you learn through yoga, to be the witness. You see more clearly your actions and their fruits. And so it's easier to, but it has to be very intentional. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes,
doesn't it boil down to the basic principle of oneness? So if we practice that, that would help a lot in all the others, following the yamas and the niyamas.
The only difficulty with that, Nira, is that oneness is an experience, not an idea. We can take a stand for it, but if we come from oneness, yes, we're not going to be able to harm anything or anyone. But it's a long way from our sense of separation, this sense of I, me, mine, to oneness. Oneness is, in a sense, the pinnacle. When one realizes the divine presence, then one has this sense of oneness. As I said, you can take a stand for it and say, I believe in this, and therefore I'm going to act this way. But it's a slow process of actually correcting all of one's, not your point, not pointing at you, but correcting all of the behaviors, thought patterns, and speech that reflect our sense of I, me, mine, as separation, in other words. So yes, you're right about oneness is the key. But oneness is that sense of the real knowledge of oneness that's the pinnacle. Thank you, Nira. You're right to mention that.
Shankaraji,
Yes, dear.
I understand, see that, the abstention from harming has a positive, some of the meaning is to do good to others. That part I understood, but the thing is, I'm trying to understand as it is. Now, abstention from harming others appears to be a negative observance. In what way, even just to, avoid harming others, in what way does it have a negative, observance? I just do not able to understand that part.
Why do we harm others?
No.
Why do we harm others? Because we put ourselves first. If we don't put ourselves first, if we truly do not put ourselves first, if we don't have this idea that it's me against the world, that's the negative. That's the negative. It's me against the world. I have to take from the world to get what I want, to make myself happy, to be safe and secure.
Brother, I was just going to follow up on that comment, is that what came to my mind is that when we feel small and lesser than and therefore the fear and insecurity,
Mhm.
that's often the motivation for striking out, when we don't realize or even attempt to realize our larger nature. But when we come from that place of incompleteness, then yeah, the world looks dangerous, as you said, and we have to be greedy and grasping.
Precisely.
But I
Very,
will, you know,
very
then
beautifully said, Peter.
thank you. But I like your way of then turning it into a positive, in that we want to think of ourselves as contributing
Right.
and caring.
Well, if we do that, if we turn it around, as the Swami said, and do the not harming others is a negative statement.
Mm-hmm.
Doing good to others and living in love and harmony is a positive statement. The only way to get from the one to the other is to question in ourselves just exactly what you said. Am I small and insignificant? Is there really a lack? Is there really a lack? And of course, our left mind will endlessly, and I mean endlessly, emphasize the lack.
Mm-hmm.
It is only when we reach to the heart, which is what Nira was gesturing at, when we have this sense of oneness which comes from our heart realization. Our left mind will constantly find reason to fear and to doubt. And as you said, feel small, disadvantaged, and so on. So this is why we'll get to the niyamas
Mm-hmm.
to replace this adversarial relationship with the world, to replace this I, me, mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Patanjali describes the niyamas, which are the observances that replace this. But and they're to be practiced together. It isn't sequential. It isn't we start with the yamas and then go on to the niyamas. No. We start by questioning our way of being that leads to our thinking, speaking, and acting the way we do. And then look to those observances which can replace that way of thinking, speaking, and acting. Anything else from anyone? This is very good. This is exactly it.
I have a question,
Yes.
Brother Shankara.
Yeah.
This idea of instead of doing harm to do good, is
Mhm.
there a practical application for that in the political scene that we see today in Georgia?
Oh dear, I'm reluctant to get into that, but let me just say there are a number of organizations, the Georgia Justice Project, the ACLU, of course, the New Georgia Project. There are lots of organizations that are attempting to right the ship, as it were.
Well, that's not exactly what I'm referring to. I mean, how do we ourselves behave without going to any organization, but how do we behave with our fellow Americans, so to speak, who may agree or disagree and still be effective?
Well, if you act toward everyone with the idea that they are the divine being, and so to treat them in that way, this is part of the observances. if you deal with everyone, regardless of whether they agree or disagree with you. And is this difficult? It can be very difficult. But yes, if you just deal with them in that way, what you find is that they respond in kind. It won't do any good whatsoever to argue with people of different political or philosophical frames of reference. But if you act lovingly toward them in any way, just offering them a hand, a smile, a recognition,
Well, that would be good if it worked, but when people are trying to crush us, it's they're not really on a wavelength to receive kindness. They have their own paradigm. And how do we, maybe what I'm asking you really can't be answered on this particular forum.
well, you've answered your own question, dear, by asserting that they can't receive.
Well, I know from experience because it's in my family.
Yes. It's in all of our families.
That's right. So of course, we don't want to crush our family members. We just want to avoid being crushed by them.
Why would you feel that you would be crushed by them?
I won't be crushed by them, but they intend to maintain power at any cost to other people.
Yes, and you will they will only have any power over you if you agree to it.
Of course, I understand that, but I suppose the bottom line for my thinking right now is that they may not be receptive to Hindu style beliefs or behavior or approaches. They have their own unchangeable path.
Dear heart, no one is suggesting, and I mean this from the bottom of everything that I am. No one is suggesting practicing Hindu style with anyone. It's simply a matter of changing your feeling of adversarialness to one of, and this is what this will be explained more when we get to the niyamas, the observances. What is it that we replace this? We don't say anything to anyone about that isn't ready to hear it or actually actively wants to hear it about our practices or our way of being. It's none of their business. But what is it we offer them? What is it that we offer the world? And it's very difficult. You're absolutely right. And it is a constant challenge. And we will make mistakes. But the only way to succeed is to continue trying until we realize what we need to realize. That enables us to do it spontaneously, naturally, and this is when the world answers back to us with.
Well, yes, if we see that our part is our own behavior, not theirs. That's our behavior, and our approach is our responsibility.
Yes.
It goes along with the Bhagavad Gita where they say your only right is to your duty, not to the fruit.
To the
So
results.
I
Yes.
suppose our life mission then is to continue being the ideal of what we believe and leave it up to them to.
How beautifully said. Yes, it is for us to strive to achieve the ideal and not try to meddle in other people's business and
Well,
not to put our own business in the street.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm talking on a higher level. For
Well,
instance, the Voting Rights Act.
I understand what you're saying, dear.
That's
understand.
our business.
Yes, yes.
But if we maybe if we behave in the best way we can and approach the politicians or other people and ask them to advocate for us, or as you say, go to other agencies and perhaps work through them. Those are the two things we can do in a case like today.
Yes, but the fundamental change is to rid ourselves of the idea that it is me against anything.
Right.
And when we do that, when we truly are convinced that, as you pointed out from the Gita, I have the right only to the work and not to the fruits, then I do my work, which in this case is to refrain from harming others, or as the Swami said, to put it in a positive sense, to do good for others, do good to others, to live in love and harmony with others, and so to strive to do that day in and day out, hour in and hour out, minute in and minute out, which is a tremendous challenge. There's no two ways about it, particularly in this very dark time that we're living in. There can be no doubt about this. We're living in a very dark time that seems to be full of peril and seems to be full, certainly is full, of anguish. Lots of people are very anguished on both sides of any particular issue because they feel so strongly that they're wronged or there's a lack or something. When we are convinced that there is no lack.
As a social media activist, it's a challenge to convert this discussions, for example, into advice or guidance or something like that for people who maybe, do you have to leave?
No. The advice or guidance.
For people who are looking for answers or something like that.
Yes. Just be as loving as you can, dear. Just
right.
be as loving and as serviceful as you can.
Yeah. Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Brother Shankara?
Yes.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
What, in a situation like this, what helps me the most is remembering what you said quite a few times earlier. What deserves my attention at this time? That's one. And second, remembering that when it comes to politicians, as good-hearted as they may be, in action and in words, they operate from a place of what's right for me and what's right for my party, but not from their conscience as to what is right. in terms of truthfulness.
Yes.
Keeping that in mind, the next question would be, in my mind, what contribution or what positive contribution, if any, I can make to the situation? And I also feel strong about the voting rights situation right now. But then I say to myself, is there anything positive that I can contribute? For example, either writing letters to certain people, not necessarily venting on my anger, no, but in a positive way as to how something could be transformed, if it can be.
Well,
Just sharing my thought with you.
as long as we're doing those things selflessly, in other words, in no hope of any gain for ourselves, then we can say that those actions are fruitful. But look how this discussion of ahimsa leads us to very practical considerations of our day-to-day lives. And that's exactly what it should lead to. Our consideration of ahimsa, being harmless, being good to the world and to others, to try and live in love and harmony. We can see how much our thoughts, our speech, our actions are sometimes at odds with that. And so we need to be, if we're going to pursue this, there's no need otherwise. But if we are going to pursue this, then we need to be constantly mindful. And Molly brought up the idea of the Gita saying, and Krishna is very explicit about this, if you want to be free of the karma that is attendant on any action you perform, understand that you perform only the action and have no right to its fruits. And then the fruits in the form of karma do not come back to you. So anything else about this topic of ahimsa, this is exactly what we should be doing.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I would just like to say that if we live in a way that soothes the fear of others, I think that is as much of a contribution as any huge activism or.
Absolutely. If we go about our lives in the world doing our best to soothe the fears and share this feeling of there is no lack with others, not by telling them that, by simply demonstrating it in our own lives, the way we behave.
Brother Shankara?
Yes.
I feel that the more I can direct my mind to be in the witness state and remind myself about the interplay of gunas and sanskars, it becomes easier to understand the yamas and maybe even practice it. Yes, it's a constant attempt, but in that state, I think it's a little bit easier. The resistance goes down.
Yes, you're
and
absolutely right.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to share was recently I heard this incident in Swami Vivekananda's life that he was on a trip to Kashmir and he saw a temple of Divine Mother that had been an ancient temple that had been destroyed by a Muslim invasion. So it made him very agitated and angry. And he said that if I had been there, I would have done whatever I can to prevent this destruction. And then a voice came that told him that do you really think that if I wanted to protect myself, that I couldn't have done it? Do you think that you need to protect me?
Yes.
And that then sort of, I guess, brought to his mind. And I believe that after that, he started devoting more time towards, I guess, meditation and spiritual practice. So bottom line is, again, ultimately, if we surrender and know that we do the best we can, or what we think is the best, but ultimately God knows how to take care of himself or herself or itself.
Yes, precisely. Yes, that's an incident that really set Swamiji back on his heels. His feeling of belligerence was immediately met by the mother's question. Do you think I need you to take care of me? Do you think you need to be belligerent on my behalf? That's just more foolishness. If I'd wanted to protect this temple, I would have done it.
Brother Shankara, this is Fred. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Fred.
Good morning. I have to comment. This very issue, what we're talking about, what Molly brought up, is what really drove me into a spiritual awakening. I found myself basically hating half the country. So that brought me to an experience. You and I have talked about it. And now I just think if you don't have compassion for whoever you disagree with, maybe you're on, I don't know, this is my take. Maybe you're on the wrong track, because I know I was on the wrong track. And if you're so sure you're right, which I certainly used to be very sure about it, I don't know, it sounds like ego to me. But
well, that's it. That's exactly it, Fred. You're right on the money.
Now, it is a kind of a tough question. We all know it's tough as to, well, how much action do you do in the world then? Because if you really take this to the nth degree, maybe you wouldn't do anything. I don't know. But
this is what Krishna says. You can't not do anything. So then do what appears to you to be the appropriate thing from moment to moment to moment. And this thing of being compassionate toward others, if we agree that the reason we're not illumined is that we are immersed in ignorance.
Right.
And that when we look out at the world and we see other people who we seem to disagree with, they also are immersed in ignorance. Their ignorance is different than ours. That's the only difference.
Right.
We'll only be able to live, all of us, in harmony when we're all illumined. Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So the best we can do is work toward it ourselves. As Vivekananda said, arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached. And it's not, it's not at our well, it is at our fingertips, but we don't see it as at our fingertips. So it seems like it's a long way away, but it is achievable, and it is something we can do in this lifetime.
I agree with that. And it's actually, we saw Gandhiji change so much just by one step at a time, and
Yes,
his attitude. So I totally agree with that, Brother Shankara.
Good. Excellent. Thank you, Mom. And thank you, Fred. Anything else from anyone?
Well, I have a couple of things because, the same thing and the same token, what Vivekananda was instructed by the mother, the same way, I think it is Jadu Malik once told Ramakrishna he wants to build the hospitals and the schools and all those things.
Yes, roads, wells, all that stuff, yes.
Yes, that reminded me that. And the other thing is really the
And what did Sri Ramakrishna tell him?
Oh, Sri Ramakrishna said, do you need I think he said God needs your help.
Yeah.
In other words,
What did he say to Jadu Malik to do?
yes. I mean, do whatever that's,
No, he said first realize God.
Yes.
Make your objective to know God, to realize God. Then you will know what to do. You will have God's command. But do you think God needs your help? So in the present moment, but his directive to Jadu was to first know God, and that is what the Master says over and over. And for that matter, it's what Christ said: "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you." Now, if that's not a powerful statement, I don't know what is. And it essentially summarizes page after page of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So there was something else, Mala. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, you corrected me. That's wonderful.
Okay, good.
The other thing I really like this one is Vivekananda's interpretation of ahimsa, the jealousy, absence of jealousy. It really gives you a yardstick to see how we are growing in our spiritual attempts and all those things. It's a wonderful yardstick. That's what I think.
Yes, exactly. What is jealousy? Jealousy is I have a lack. That other person has more. I have a lack. I am disadvantaged. I. As long as that starts your thoughts, as long as I, me, mine is at the forefront of your thoughts, speech, and action, then you're going to have that jealousy. So Swamiji, as usual, comes to the kernel of the matter, comes to the nut. We won't be jealous if we don't feel like there's a lack. And we won't be trying to remedy the lack by these things that are to be restrained by the yamas.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, I am.
I was going to add that a forum like this, in a forum like this, it's so much easier to do manana with you guiding and, than doing manana by myself. I mean, I try to do it independently, but I think forum like this is so much more powerful.
Isn't that why we do this, Swayam? You're absolutely right. And it isn't just me. It's everybody else who's participating. This is how we practice the art of spirituality together. We're doing the manana together. You're absolutely right. And it is a joy to be a part of a group like this that'll devote a part of their Saturday to consideration of these things and working through this. What does ahimsa really mean? What does it mean to be harmless in the world? What does it mean to do good to others? what is my role? What should be my actions in the face of what I see? This is what's so good for us to consider. Anyone else, dears?
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I heard the train go by, and last time you were saying you always think that's Rama.
Yes, that's just a playful way
I know.
of doing that. Give everything a Godward turn. That actually wasn't my invention. It was the invention of another devotee who lives nearby. And, rather than being annoyed by the train, and thinking, oh, there goes another, train whistle, it just gives it a Godward turn to say, oh, there's Rama coming through with the pushpaka. And it's charming. It's wonderful. So I just got onto that comet's tail. All right, we've got just a few minutes left, just so that we can go through this ahimsa business. Now, abstention, I'm reading the Swami again. Now, abstention from harming others appears to be a negative observance, but in its positive sense, the meaning is to do good to all and to learn to live and love and to learn to live in love and harmony with others. Remember this. This is the first teaching of all great teachers. Do no harm. Buddha emphasized it especially. One may say, another hurts me, hates me, did this to me. I will not forgive and forget. Well, such a person can never be a yogi. Love conquers hatred. Swami Vivekananda gave a wonderful interpretation. The test of ahimsa is absence of jealousy. He points out that the so-called great men of the world may all be seen to become jealous of each other, or for a little name and fame, or for a few bits of gold. Such jealousy exists in the heart, and it is far away from the perfection of ahimsa. So we'll leave it at that until next time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful discussion group that, as Swayam points out, is doing the manana that is so much a part of this process. We hear it, then we must assimilate it. Oh, dearly beloved divine presence, let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Presence. Tomorrow morning, I'm delighted to tell you we have a guest speaker. His name is Dr. Lloyd Allen. He's a senior person at the McAfee School of Theology at Mercer University. And he has a great love for and has studied deeply the work of Thomas Merton, the Catholic mystic and monk. Tomorrow morning's talk by Dr. Lloyd Allen will be Stages of Faith, Killing Lesser Gods. And it's based in the work of Thomas Merton. And it is one can say that it reaches a completely non-dual conclusion. That elimination of all of the other idols and small g gods that populate our awareness leaves us only with that consciousness, which is primary and is not plural. And so I highly recommend you're taking time tomorrow morning, if you have it, to zoom in and hear Dr. Allen speak. Dr. Allen will be introduced by his dear friend and student, Elizabeth Yates, known to some of you as Jyoti. He is her spiritual director, and she'll tell us a good bit about him in her introduction. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right. It's been so good to be with you this morning. And until our next meeting, whenever that is.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you, dears.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
brother. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody have a great day.